I haven't. I know when I was away, Michael had a chat with him. I haven't talked to this particular politician, I think, since election night. So it's nice to catch up with him again. And he was a person always happy to come on and talk during the campaign, in fact, on any issue with us. That is the ACT Party leader David Seymour. David, welcome to the platform. Nice to talk to you again.
Good morning, Sean. Welcome back. I'm glad you're better.
Yeah. Look, firstly, looking at, the shakedown, the outcome of the election, though we don't have much to the chagrin of the mainstream media, we do not have a final result till Friday with all the specials counted. What's your overall reaction to how ACT ended up, or how ACT is washing up at the end of the 2023 election?
Well, you'd have to be pretty happy. First of all, it's a record result. ACT's never had more than 10 MPs until last time. People took us to 10. It took us to 11 this time. And also, Brooke, our deputy, winning Tāmaki, I think, opens up a whole new front for what ACT is and can be. So, altogether, those are good things. But I think the most important thing is that we've done that at a time when the National Party has been relatively strong. So you might remember the narrative 3 years ago is, ACT did pretty good, sure, but that's only because National tanked. National's come back, and that means that ACT and National on the cusp of forming a government. Depending on how those specials go, it'll be two of us together alone or three. So, you'd have to be pretty happy with the whole thing. I think there'll be people out there who say, well, yeah, but sure, you polled, 12, 13% 5-6 weeks beforehand and finished lower. I think that's true, obviously, but I also just point out that, ACT is a party that's, for the last 5 weeks, basically relentlessly said things that I believe are true and will be vindicated on. One is the government's out of money, and there's not going to be big tax cuts. There will have to be big reductions in spending, because what Labor did was unsustainable.
Okay, so the economy one,
Yep. Two is that I think that the situation that we have built up over 40 years around the treaty and what it means to us, that is unfortunately something we now need to discuss. I wish it wasn't. I wish that we'd never gone down the track that this country's been taken in the last 4 decades. But unfortunately it has, and we have to confront it, and that's not an easy conversation. And I think saying that got a lot of people's backs up, got us a lot of negative press out there, but hey, that happens. And I think the third thing is that we were pretty honest about the fact that we're not here to just change the government, go along and be good coalition partners if we're not getting the changes that this country needs and that people voted for. And that again, people said, oh well, you should just always play nice. Well, actually, our view is that people voted for us to not just make sure the government changes and we have better people in charge.
But there's real change,
but make sure the policy changes.
Yeah, and I think the poll chasing, or the focus group chasing nature of the National Party campaign suggests that perhaps is a necessity in this new political reality we have. Where are things at coalition-wise? Because until you get those numbers on Friday, you don't really know the makeup. And I know that, these things can't be conducted openly in public, because that's not the way you can negotiate. But would it be fair to say you've got a framework or an idea, and actually once the final results are in, getting going isn't going to be that hard?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we've had extensive discussions and worked through, a whole lot of areas where we agree, where we disagree, and try to work out what the outline of an arrangement with the Nats looks like. But as you say, because a bunch of people didn't register and showed up on the day and changed their electorates and so on, then we will have to wait an extra week. Now, we can argue whether that's right or wrong, and maybe in the future we will, but right now that's the law and that's what's happening. So once we know those final results, you can imagine a scenario where with the addition of the Port Waikato by-election, which was another obviously a very sad thing that happened during
Yeah,
the
it was.
campaign. But it will now mean that almost certainly National will have one more seat by the end of the year than they get from the final results. You can imagine a scenario where it's 62-60 or 62-59. So many things can happen. It's almost, there's not enough information to usefully speculate.
All right.
That's
So we all know you've talked. We all know you've talked to the Nats. You say you've reached. You got an idea about where you're going with them. Have you had any conversations with Winston Peters?
No, I haven't done that, and he's obviously welcome to, and at some point we may do, but at this point we've been focused on getting a workout of what an arrangement looks like with the Nats, so that whether or not we need a third party, we've got some clear understandings.
Okay. We talked to Winston Peters yesterday. The only major interview he's done since the election. He's not so keen on the mainstream media. He was saying it was all pretty conciliatory, David. And in particular, I think there was common ground on the thing you have said today is your second highest priority, the issue of the interpretation of the Treaty of Waitangi in current day practices and governmental practices. This contentious, if you're mainstream media, issue of a referendum. Winston Peters argued yesterday, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, we've had a referendum on this. It was called an election. He had a bill back in 2005, and I read his opening speech to that bill. You could have written it. You guys are in lockstep on this.
I can assure you I didn't.
But, yeah, okay, sure I didn't. But it seems to me there is some common ground there, despite, the natural argy-bargy of the election campaign between ACT and New Zealand First. And one gets the impression this is a different Winston Peters, who is seeking to be constructive. Why not reach out to him if he is going to help ACT in its job of driving real change from a national-led government?
Well, I guess you could ask him the same question, but let's just be clear. First of all, this is a problem that's built up over 40 years. Nobody's had more chances to fix that than...
Well, he tried in 2005 and the Nats voted him down on his principles of the Treaty Dissolution Bill.
Well, that's certainly true, but there's been 4 other times when he was actually in cabinet, aside from then. So you can think about is it someone else's fault, and shift the blame, I guess. But here's the reality: this is a problem that's built up over 40 years. We have a comprehensive strategy for getting back to democracy. In fact, the paper that we released, I think around the 18th of September, a month out from the election, A Pathway Back from Co-Governance to Democracy, sets out what needs to happen.